This is your guy, Lonzo Star. Oh, we're gonna start now. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Lonzo Star, CEO and founder of Concrete Comics, writer and creator of the legendary Acolyte and Zoriel. This here is my panel of the godfathers of indie comics currently. All the guys I feel that you need to know if you're trying to tap into indie comics. And if we want to do the subcategory indie black comics. Um, and this is the gateway. This is the hallway down the door of excellence in the indie comic community. And I'm excited to introduce all these fellas. In this panel, I didn't even get to mention that this panel is Publishing 101 KWAY-WEEKEnd. So let's dive into it. First person on my right, Mr. Most Epic himself, the man who freestyles before Comic Cons, gets people amped up and motivated. My brother, Mr. Watson, how you feeling?
I'm feeling really good, man. Thank you for having me out here at y'all's celebration weekend. It's an honor and pleasure.
Nah, no doubt, man. And to the bottom of my screen, I got the OG, the man behind a lot of what I do, who led me down the Jedi pathway of diamond distribution. My man Marcus H. Roberts. How you feeling, man?
What's going on, man? I'm happy to be here to celebrate with you, man. I'm proud of where you all are at and looking forward to where you're going.
I appreciate you, man. Second Sight Publishing is doing amazing things, and you are the Mace Windu of the community. And then we got the youngest Jedi here, Mr. Midnight Comics himself, Lloyd Jones, the first family of comics, actually. Him and his wife are a duo. It's incredible what they're doing, what they're making, man. I really love every aspect of their creative process. Mr. Jones, how you feeling?
Man, pretty good, man. To echo what everybody was saying, congrats on 5 years, man, and thanks for having us on, bro.
Nah, bro, it's always a pleasure chatting with you. As you know, our conversations can get a little bit violent, but you know it gets real.
True.
And without further ado, the man who's created a community for us to thrive in and be successful and meet people that are looking for exactly what we do, Mr. Paul Dub, Black Comics Lords. How you feeling?
Oh, well, when you started saying created a community, I was like, well, who's that? That guy sounds exciting. I'm just happy to be here, man. I mean, I didn't create it by myself. We're a team, but I appreciate the love and support. I mean, you guys are everybody on this panel. You're all something special, and I'm just happy to be here to support all of you.
I appreciate you, and we all can say we appreciate the platform. Black Comic Lords has done amazing work for our notoriety and our names, man. Me especially. I'm just happy to be able to thrive in there. So, without further ado, we're gonna get into these questions, man. And I'm gonna start from the top. I'm gonna start to my right. So, my first question is, why did you decide to self-publish and not go with an established publisher in the beginning? Mr. Watson, it's on you.
Oh, well, that's real easy because they told me no.
Mm.
I was trying to chase down my dream of working for Marvel Comics in DC by when they went to comic book conventions, stand in line with my portfolio, get the review, figure out what I needed to do to be able to draw comics for them. And I did that for about 2 or 3 years, getting feedback and updating and trying to improve upon the things they were asking for. And then finally, they pulled me into the back room. Was looking at my stuff, really liked it, complimented me, told me I was a good storyteller, had great anatomy, action poses, and things like that. But then hit it with a but, and as Jon Snow said, everything before but is bullshit. And then said that your style is too urban for what we're looking for right now.
Mm.
And I was shattered by that, being a huge comic book fan and not really knowing what that even meant at the time. I just wanted to get out the room. I was upset. I was broken. I was sad. And I just wanted to get away. Take mine. I drove 6 hours to Chicago to be in this line to wait 5 hours for them to tell me this. And my mom always told me that I get 24 hours to be in my feelings. And then after that, you got to come up with a game plan. And after that, I talked to my friend, and we were talking about I wanted to make comic books, and I didn't know how. And we talked on the phone for hours, and ended up, coming up with my own comic label, Freestyle Comics, based off my tag name, and just making these books with my urban style.
That's fire, man. Just the same shameless plug. We got the episode of Concrete Approved with Michael Watson dropping soon, and I really need y'all to check that out. He really dives in with the story he told y'all. He just gave y'all a little nugget into the depths of his origin story. His origin story is one of the best origin stories in the community, man. And I was blessed to hear it. And it motivated me a lot, man. So definitely thanks for sharing that, Mike. Same question to you, Mr. Jones. Why did you decide to self-publish and not go with an established publisher?
Two parts. One, I heard horror stories, right? Not too different than what Mike's gone through. Like, okay, yeah, I don't want to go through that. That's daunting, or rather, we don't want to go through that. That's kind of daunting. But also, just when you do have the opportunity, if you do get in there, there's too much red tape from our understanding, right? There's not enough wiggle room to really do what it is that you want to do. So we were just like, we're just going to do our thing. We're just going to keep pushing and really bring our dream to a reality. So that's what we decided to do.
That's dope, man. And I think it was a perfect timing for when you guys came out, because y'all came right after the initial COVID wave, and y'all slipped right behind the wave and started treading that water like this, following the wave, man. So it was dope. Last question for you, Marcus. Same question. Why did you decide to self-publish and start Second Sight Publishing and not go initially alongside of a established publisher?
Well, I came from the era where independents were really recognized. I mean, the whole underground comics movement was about independent comics and independent comic creators and publishers. But I was exposed to this comic book company called Fitzgerald Publishing. Fitzgerald Publishing published the Golden Legacy comic books. Black owned, Black run, hiring Black artists right out of art school, bringing them in. I mean, Fitzgerald Publishing was, as a publisher, like, they were it. And having knowledge of that and knowing that they did this, they weren't Marvel, they weren't DC, who was around, as well as some of the other people. But they weren't Marvel or DC, they were Fitzgerald Publishing. And then as I went on through comics and just knowing comic book history, realizing that one of the biggest movements in Black comic book history came in the 90s, when there was an explosion of independent Black comic book publishers. And this was more than just Milestone or Anaya, who are the popular ones you hear, but even people like the friend of all of ours, Jibba Anderson. Even he started in the 90s. Andre Batts with dreadlocks. I mean, these are the guys from the 90s. So with inspiration like that, when I decided that I was going to do publishing, I was like, okay, yeah, I can do this myself. But what we also did with Second Sight was we looked back and realized some of the things that were done with other publishers and taking advantage of opportunities that presented themselves in order for them to actually get their stuff out. And that's where we started partnering with the established companies. Once we established ourselves, we started partnering with them. And I do mean partnership. When you read anything about it, it always says in partnership.
Right. Oh yeah, no, I love that. I love how y'all built up to be who you were first before you approach. I think that's the mistake a lot of people make, is they go there as an infant, as a baby, with nothing to their name, and their leverage is completely off. So when they go into these big rooms with the big two, or whoever you go into this room with, they're looking at you like some little baby that they got to morph into a man, and all this work they got to do. So they want to take everything from you, and it makes sense.
If I could chime in here, from the consumer's perspective, the collector's perspective, the reader's perspective, I think some of the things that sort of strike a chord in me is sort of a combination of what Michael and Lloyd both said. The experience of going to the big two, having them turn you down, or having them say, well, if you come to work for us, you have to do this, 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 and that, and you can't do that, that, and this. That's a from my perspective as someone who has interviewed a lot of creators, over the last couple of years. That is like a consistent thing that pops up. Is the limitations that you have with the big two in terms of your creativity and in your content, and that's important because the biggest gripes that we have in our space with regard to comics today is the lack of creativity. Having to see the same type of stories and the same characters over and over again, and having that content edited where you can't speak in a certain way or you can't touch on certain topics. And so you have a redundancy and lack of creativity in the storytelling that's being done. And ultimately, for longevity purposes, what makes you successful is having good stories, because years from now, when someone says, "Hey, what was that book about?" or "What did that creator do?" they're going to say, "Well, what type of story was it?" That's what people remember, and that's what makes people follow you and make you want to continue to always support that particular publisher, creator's story. And you guys have a greater freedom self-publishing than you do when you're with the big two.
That's very true. That in particular, that's one of the reasons why I do what I do. I needed to have my own voice. I needed to be able to tell the story I wanted to tell, the way I wanted to tell it, and put the right people around me to make sure I'm telling it in the right way, which is my lovely editor Montrez and Daniel D. Cobb, all the editors I work with that help me stay in line with that, man. So all y'all stories are dope, and Paul, you're absolutely right. And that leads me to my second question, which I'm gonna start with you, Mr. Jones. What are your 5 keys to successfully publish a title?
Ooh, that's a good one. Okay. 5 keys to successfully publish a title. Understanding your own vision. I think one of the things, I hope I don't ramble too long, but like speaking of, if I'm going to go from personal experience, like I have a lot of ideas, sure, but what is my end goal? What is the vision at the end of the day for each of the stories? Having an understanding of what I'm trying to do there will better help grasp what I'm doing when we're publishing a particular story. 2, staying true to yourself and what it is that you're trying to accomplish, which kind of ties into that vision. 3, understanding your audience. I think in the beginning, and I think I've told you this plenty of times, Lonzo, in the beginning when we first got started, we wanted to do what everybody else was doing. I wanted content immediately. Everybody had a bunch of titles, and obviously, like you said, to mimic your words, we were infants in the game, right? And so it was just like, yeah, I want a bunch of content. Okay, but who are you? What is your identity? What are you guys doing? What exactly are you trying to accomplish? And so understanding what that was, and then understanding what our audience wanted, led us to how we released our books and what we're focusing on publishing and stuff like that. I think that's number 3, right? Or was that number
4?
Oh goodness, I'm drawing a blank on 4 and 5, guys. I'm so sorry. 4
and 5.
Patience when it comes to working with your artists, writing your stories and releasing and stuff like that. It is a marathon, not a race. I think for sure. Which ties into the kind of story I was telling a second ago, where I wanted content immediately. And that's kind of what went into us creating Tales for Midnight. Let's just do 4 short stories, let the audience know the kind of stories that we're trying to tell, and our variety of storytelling, or maybe diverse ways of storytelling, what have you, and then let them decide. So I think that kind of goes hand in hand. And then 5th, have fun with it, because there's going to be times where you're just like, this is daunting, this is tiring, this is frustrating, whether it's you have writer's block, or the artist is taking too long for those of us that don't do the sequential art, or just trying to build up the social media. Like, have fun and enjoy the journey. So there we go. There's the 5.
Okay, I like that. I think it would be dope if we made like a list. This is Midnight's top 5 keys. This is Freestyle's top 5 keys. Second Sight's top 5 keys. We put it all in one little post where people can be like, yo, this is dope. So same question to you, Mr. Watson. What are your 5 keys to publishing a brand new title, or to successfully publish a title?
Successfully publishing a title. That's a full-on loaded question. There's so many things that you have to do to get a book from start to finish. I'd say the most important thing is communication with your team. Communication with your team, and then trust of that team. Um, then I'd have to absolutely agree with Lloyd on having something that people want and that they're looking for. Uh, and a strong story with strong characters would be number four. And five, knowing your market, where to move that book, how to move that book, where would that book be best serviced, understanding within that market, like understanding that your online sales are different from your convention sales, which are different from your Kickstarter sales, which are different from your own event sales. Those are all different audiences, and with a book, you have to be prepared and know how you're going to pitch and sell to each one of those. I'd like to shout out Black Comic Lords because I'm forever learning. I will never stop learning, and definitely hipped me to some new ways to spin on and sell our books. So that's what I would say.
That's fire. Top five for freestyle right there, y'all. Mr. Roberts, how we looking? What are your five keys to successfully publish a title?
Number one would be know where you're going or what you want to be, because that's going to determine exactly how you will build your foundation. So know where you're going, know what you want to be. Number two would be learn the business.
Mm.
Learn the business. You have to know that you don't go into any type of game without knowing the rules of the game.
Yeah.
And you don't succeed in any game without not just talent, but bringing that talent into the game with those rules and being successful. That's why you got the NBA and you got and1. You go in and1 and you just everywhere, but the NBA tells you can't hold the ball back like this and then bring it back down because it's palming or walking. Know the rules of the game. Number three would be know the market or know your audience. So you're going to do something, but who are you doing? Where are you going to sell it at? Who are you going to sell it to? Where are you going to put it at so it will actually be the most successful in sales? You don't want to put your horror title in with superheroes because it will get drowned. So knowing that market. Number four would be develop a solid team, because you're getting ready to put something out for consumption, and that what you're putting out for consumption, you want it to be the best, whether it's comic books or food. And you want it to be the best. You want people to be drawn to it. You want people to say, man, I had some of that and you need to get some too. So develop the best team. And then lastly, as Mr. Jones there said, have fun with it.
Have fun with it. Nah, those are major keys. So I would ask Paul. I want to ask you, what are the two major ways you've seen books become successful in Black Comic Lords?
Well, I would say I might even have more than two. In terms of what, as a consumer, I've noticed people tend to gravitate to when it comes to the independent books. First is a highly superficial. You got to have a dope cover. You got to have a dope cover. Your cover is your advertisement, right? That's how when you're looking at a shelf or you're looking at a bookshelf at a LCS, that cover is the first thing you're going to say. You want something that looks different than what you're seeing at Marvel and DC, and it doesn't have to be something that's different. Can mean a lot of different things, like. The highest selling comic book in the world, the African American comic book was A Tribe. There wasn't a lot to it, but it was different, right? That first issue, the black with the gold cover, it was different, and that attracted people. The next thing is, along I would say ditto everything Marcus says, but you got to have a good story. You got to have good art inside. If you're a writer, make sure that you invest in having a really good quality artist, because there's a lot of biases still within the comic collecting community towards indie books. People will automatically and naturally make comparisons between your books and what they're seeing in Marvel and DC. So make sure that your artwork that's comparable, if not better, than what they're seeing in Marvel and DC, because people naturally make those comparisons. The other thing is, if it's a first issue, don't undersell it. Don't make it too small, because sometimes, particularly when you're self-publishing, you may not have the ability to crank out a book every month. And people are interested in that, right? They want to see consistency. They can't wait to the next issue. So you don't want your first issue to be underwhelming, where it's like, that's all that, 20 pages, that's it. Like, I didn't even get a full story. I don't know I don't know if that's really going to grab me. Make sure at least your first issue, if you can expand it out to like 30 issues, 32 issues, on 32 pages, make sure it's a full enough story that that a person doesn't feel underwhelmed, but that you've given them enough that they'll want to get some more. And then finally, a big thing is quality of paper. Here's where you guys could really have an advantage over the big two. Marvel's paper quality is trash. It's terrible.
That's interesting.
And so investing in having, you can use just about any publisher is going to have better card stock for their covers, better quality of glossy paper that's bright on the interiors than what you're going to have at Marvel. So make sure you take advantage of that. People appreciate that. I know fans appreciate having a comic that they can hold in their hand that doesn't feel like as soon as you touch it, you're making fingerprints all over it and the paint's coming off on your fingers and you already see ripples in the paper right out the shop.
Right. Those are all some great points, man. It's really dope hearing it from you, because your community is based on consumers.
Right. We hear the comments in our space all the time, so I can give you those perspectives.
Oh yeah, that's dope. That's dope. No, I love all of you guys' responses on that one. It kind of leads me to my next question now, and I'm going to start with you, Mr. Roberts. Name your 3 hardest challenges when publishing a new title.
The 3 hardest challenges: building an audience, marketing and promotion, and creator participation. Because when you self-publish, all of that is on you. When you're publishing another title, oftentimes the creators feel like all of that is on you and not them. They don't take it as a shared responsibility. And just totally forgetting the fact that they aren't the only creator that you are publishing. So the whole, you're not saying my stuff, you're not getting my stuff out there enough when it's like 10, 11, 30 other titles that are wanting the same thing becomes difficult. So that is a challenge. The challenge is finding that balance. And I guess the third thing would be driving traffic to the book, which is similar to marketing and promotion, with the exception that now you're driving, which means you're looking for a targeted audience. You know where this book is going to sell.
Right.
And although you want wide exposure for the book, still you want to put this book in the hands of the people who you know are going to buy it. So you have to drive to that audience and bring them in. And it requires time and sacrifice, but it always pays off, because those are the people that are the consumers of this book. Your profit doesn't so much lie with them. Your profit lies with getting people outside of that, and that's where marketing and promotion comes in. So
And I
the
think
two,
that's
at least in my eyes, are different.
now I feel like that's a very good point. Because that driving people to your title is very difficult if you don't know where they are. Because trying to figure out who is specifically looking for what you put out and what's similar to it. Is it similar in a good way? Is it similar to a bad way? What is your selling pitch? And I think that's one of the biggest challenges is to that. Same question to you, Mr. Jones. Name your three hardest challenges when publishing a new title.
Yeah, I think Marcus definitely you had some great there. I agree with all of them. One of the things different for me is definitely like funding it, and just kind of either diverting like funds specifically to a project. I like to like, of course, we do Kickstarters and stuff like that, but I usually like to have these projects done before moving the project to Kickstarter and all of that. So just trying to build that audience and really try to allocate that funds to go towards that, I think, is our first one. Next up, I guess again, finding that audience. We're in an interesting spot because we not only do traditional style comics, but also manga. So trying to be present everywhere, or trying to figure out that happy medium of the audience, I think is definitely the hard part, because we do have a manga that we're working on in the background aside from the Unbeloved, and trying to really focus on honing in on that audience and move away from just catering to our Soul in the Gray audience has been interesting. And then three hardest. I have to mimic you, Marcus. I think it's driving that traffic. I think driving that traffic not only to that title, but of course to that website to get them more abreast on that character and title can be difficult at times when trying to publish a new title. And right now it's just me and Tasha for any context for anybody in regards to us publishing. That's the team. It's me and Tasha and then those books. So deciding on which titles that we're working on ourselves need to come out next, it is definitely interesting conversations. But anyway, I've said the three. I think driving that traffic, funding those projects, and trying to find that happy medium between traditional comics and manga has been very tricky.
That comics and manga thing. I know me and you talk about that a lot. How do you
Yeah.
you coordinate that tread line? You know what I mean? Because those
Yeah.
are two completely different audiences.
Completely.
You're trying to bring them to the same house,
right? And it was an attempt, and I hope I don't ramble here, but it was an attempt to try to have something for everybody, right? But that goes back to what we were saying about the keys earlier, where it's just like, all right, what is your initial vision, and how do you stay true to yourself, and what it is that you wanted to see and provide? What's your focus? What do you hone in and focus on? And so that's why there was that kind of pivot point. We wanted to come out with our traditional style comics first, but we was like, oh, but we found the artist for the manga, so that'll carry us. It didn't. We didn't get on the map until the traditional style comic came into play. We know a lot of people that like manga, but we didn't set ourselves apart with our manga, right? And so now, what is again that pivot point where it was just like, focus on Soul, focus on the Gray, focus on what the community has voiced they wanted, right? And then start to take that data and move from, if we're going to re-attack the manga side, take that data that we learned from the stories that the people wanted to see and apply that to the manga scene and see where it goes from there. So you guys will see how that pans out soon.
And I just like to echo in on that as well, because we did the same similar thing. We came out and we were doing superheroes, we were doing slice of life, we were doing fantasy, and it's like, okay, what do people actually want from us? But what is it that we actually do that they want? And it was hard, hands down hard. So I'd say 2 years into us getting started, because we've been on this horror thing for the last 3 years, where we announced horror is what we're going to be doing. We even announced that anthologies and trades and graphic novels are the directions that we're going to be going in. And this was 3 years ago that we announced this. So that's where our focus started coming in at, and that's what we are known for.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this often when people refer to Second Sight or horror. They don't say that black company, Second Sight Publishing. They just say Second Sight Publishing because we have established ourselves as a horror company.
Yeah.
Yeah, can I say something on that? It's important, I think, to do something with regard to, in terms of your challenges, publishing. Marketing's a big thing, but also, as Marcus said, knowing what your audience wants.
Yeah.
Now, with regard to both of those, there's an immediate, thing that I think every publisher needs to invest in, and that's in social media. Lonzo is a Jedi master at it at this point. He's everywhere. Concrete is everywhere. Every place that you could possibly look, can't say Concrete doesn't have a presence there. That's important. But on top of that, using social media as a barometer as to what your audience wants. Engagement is important. And the best part about social media is that it's free for the most part. I mean, unless you're doing paid ads, which you can do, it's all free. It's free advertising that you can do on your own or have a dedicated person or team that does that. But it is all free. But the further part is not just advertising on it, but engaging with your customers. The customers appreciate it. And moreover, it's a great opportunity for you to get market research. Listen to what they're saying. What are the things that they liked about your book? What are the comments they're making about it? What are the things they're not talking about that you thought that they would be interested in and be talking about that they didn't? And just generally speaking, being in social media spaces, what are the things that they say they hate? So you know what to avoid. And then finally, I would say, don't be afraid to be creative. People are looking at your book because they're tired of looking at, this Marvel book or this DC book, and they're looking for something different. So don't be afraid to be different. Don't be afraid to be you.
Oh,
So that's what I would say on that.
I gotta take the baton on that, man. I gotta take the baton on that.
But it's funny, Mike. I was actually going to say that's one thing I think you do the best is being yourself, man. So I love to hear your 3 challenges, man.
First off, so one of my biggest challenges is at comic book conventions. I have discovered, and I want to let everybody know, this is for you all to discover as well. There's a disclaimer at comic book conventions. I want you all to know and feel comfortable talking to everybody in that convention floor because they bought a ticket to that show to come in there knowing people would sell them stuff. Do not be afraid to speak to these people. But in the same caveat, do not always talk to these people with the intentions to sell. You have to be at a comic book convention and be perfectly comfortable having a conversation and not selling them anything. You're not always selling to the person in front of you. You may be selling to the person behind you or next to them. Always be ready. And a closed mouth does not get fed. You got to be out here and ask where you can be at. Like you gotta move and ask these questions. Like be on panels, ask to be part of other people's things, talk to people. My favorite thing to do at a comic book convention is I just love being at a show. I absolutely love it. Now would I go there if I wasn't selling comic books? I would be at a comic book convention 2 hours and I'd be in and out because I'm getting exactly what I want and I'm leaving. But if I got a table, I love it because I'm talking to my neighbor. I am sizing people up. Probably like the hardest thing at a convention, if you don't know exactly where you're going to be at, is adjusting to where they put you at. Because sometimes I don't know what table I'm going to have or where I'm going to be at in a show in a row, and I hate being in the middle of a row because it cuts my receptors off. I am the type of person who I am looking at people 20, 30 feet away as they're approaching my table. If I'm in the middle of the table, that's one of the things I can't do because like I'm assessing this person as they're coming down and I'm trying to figure out what my talk off is going to be. Is this somebody I'm going to have a genuine conversation with, or is this somebody I'm about to plug, or is this somebody I'm about to do a cold sell to? Is this somebody I'm about to do a warm sell to? Like I assess that as that person's walking down there. And then also kind of like you have to be self-aware of your day and like what's the balance of the conversations that you've been having at the shows. How many people did I directly talk to and immediately went into selling something to versus somebody I just spoke to and said hi to, or seeing somebody say, hey, that shirt is dope, where'd you get that from, can I check that shirt out, or can I see that print? And you gotta be creative. Like my setup is never the same. It is never the same at a show. I've started doing this thing because of Chat and Draw that I've had people on my shows, and I think you have to be perfectly comfortable acknowledging where you're at. And I know I don't have a huge name, and I know there's other people that I've worked with who have bigger names than me, and they've been on my show. Example, Lonzo. I carry a print of Acolyte around on my print wall that has a QR code that if they scan it, it takes them directly to Lonzo's episode where he was on there talking with me as I was drawing his character. Andre Batts, I got the same thing with his character. Greg Anderson Elise, I got his character up there. So like if people see those characters and they recognize them and they're like, oh shoot, that's Acolyte. Oh, that's a Nazi. And they come over and they're like, you drew that character? Like, yeah, I had him on my show. I interviewed him. You got to think of all these kind of like different ways to reach out and to, engage people in a multitude of ways. So for me, those challenges are like, how do I stay fresh and lively at a show? Like we went to Cherry Capital, which is an amazing show. I do recommend people go to Cherry Capital. They treat you fantastic. It was wonderful there. But I had to on Friday, my setup. I was putting up challenges. Can people see how I changed my setup? I changed my setup every day based off of the crowd and what responses I was getting from the crowd, and not just like verbal responses, but I'm looking at how people are looking at my setup. I'm looking at their eyes and where their eyes are moving. I'm remembering the conversations I'm having or what people came up to at my table and picked up or looked at. I'm calculating all that in, and then I'm coming back the next day and reassessing and moving things around. And like that's something I got from Terry Huddleston, who is the greatest print artist on earth. Terry Huddleston, I'll sell anybody in the print game. There's nobody better than Terry. I don't care if you're more talented in the art game than Terry Huddleston. You're not art selling Terry because he knows his game. He knows his craft. And that's what you have to be as a comic book publisher, as a comic book creator, as a comic book seller. You have to know your craft. You have to know your zone. If you're going to these comic book conventions, you have to be fearless. You have to be shameless. You have to be genuine, and you have to know your environment.
Yeah, studying. I'm glad you.
I want to throw something in here too with Mike Watson in the Chat and Draw. If you have not done a Mike Watson Chat and Draw and let Mike do a cover for you, then you're missing out. My Mike Watson Chat and Draw cover sold on eBay for almost $30. And that's for real. I took a screenshot and sent the picture like, look, yo, Mike, look at your cover, man.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
That's fire, man. A lot of I probably don't say this enough, but a lot of my Jedi training in the Comic-Con field came from me studying Mike Watson's live streams, just watching them, because I was seeing you live streaming before I hit a Comic-Con floor. And Mike will tell you, I have no problem calling him at 6 a.m. Hey, bro, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? I'm thinking about this. How many books this? How many this and that? And, it really helps, man, because I know I can sell, but the presentation got to be on point. And Mike's a master of presentation for sure. He's a master of it. And he's a master of just really communicating, talking to people. But within studying his style, I was able to define my own. And I was like, so I can't do what he does. He's a master of that. But I know what I can do. So how do I master this? How do I know where my people are coming? Because, similar to you, I always got to see, like I know who I'm going to sell to 20 feet away. Mm-hmm. Like it could be 10 people there. I already picked out who I'm talking
to. Yeah.
And my chances are sometimes the chances are right. Like nine times out of 10, that person is interested in what I want to sell. But you are right. Sometimes he doesn't sell, but the person next to him will buy. Mm-hmm. Or the person that just walking by and heard the pitch, they're like, yo, that sounds dope. Let me check it out. So, all that is gold, man.
I don't think people understand how far friendly conversation goes. Like when I say be genuine, be your genuine, authentic self in the love of what you're doing, and people can see that. And that's why I'm not always trying to sell to every single person that comes to my table. I was doing a coloring. I was doing showing people how I do the sketch cards for Marvel, and they were asking all these questions about this couple was asking all these questions about the markers I was using, how I was blending them. I mean, even after the presentation, they came back to my table for like an hour, hour and a half, just looking at me coloring, asking questions at, where could they get these from and things like that. And I answered all their questions. We were having a good conversation. I didn't shy them away or anything like that. Whenever someone did come up to my table, I said, hold on one second, guys. I got to take care of them. And I think like 2 or 3 months later, I was at another show doing another marker rendering. I was actually doing a Hot Shot #1 sketch cover, full color. And that couple walked in and they were like, "Oh, Mike, what's up, man? How you doing? What you doing right there?" I was like, sketch cover for Hot Shot #1, just a throwback." And it was like, "How much is that?" I was like, 150. It was like, "I want it as soon as you finished." Take note. They didn't buy anything from me in that 2-hour conversation that we had 3 months ago at the show. But instantly they saw me again later, bought my sketch cover, bought a few other books. And I'm not saying like that is always going to be your end result, but some conversation and being genuine with people doesn't hurt.
That's a fact, man. I couldn't have said that better myself, bro.
Establishing relationship with your customer is always a good thing.
Oh yeah, and all of us here in this room do a very good job at that. I've been at cons with all three of you. Mm-hmm. I've seen Lloyd. Lloyd is a master of sales, man. Lloyd has the golden voice for pitching and selling. I tell him,
relax.
I feel like that segment on Step Brothers when when he was telling his brother, like, "Yo, man, you gotta sing, bro. Like your voice is golden." That's how I feel about Lloyd, man. Lloyd talks so smooth, clean, and clear. I sometimes feel like I gotta over yell my person. I gotta talk close, but Lloyd, his voice just cuts through the air perfectly, man. So cons are a whole nother animal, and it leads me to my second to last question for you guys, man. And I'm actually gonna start with you, Lloyd. I get this question often when I'm at cons, right? How to approach a publisher about submissions, and what makes you say yes?
I think approaching confident and understanding what it is that you're showcasing. And you, just to make sure I'm on the same page with you, is that's somebody coming up to our table and asking about, So what I like is when somebody comes up and again, they know exactly what they're trying to do with the story. If they have something to show, the confidence that's there, and how concise I think they're able to kind of pitch and tell us about what they have going on. I have a tendency to ramble, but I love it when somebody else can just walk up and say, "My story's about this. This is my plan. I see what you guys have done. This is what I see. This is what you guys are looking for. Here it is." Bam. Like just real quick, concise. It gives me the opportunity to look through and be like, "Oh, okay." Now, granted, I'm not on the same level as you guys. I haven't actually said yes yet. To caveat, right? But to see those submissions and really engage in those conversations, those are the things I do like.
Mr. Roberts, same question. How to approach a publisher about submissions, and what would make you say yes?
Approach with knowledge and confidence, because if the publisher is serious about submissions, he's going to ask you questions. He's going to ask you your inspiration for the story. Where'd you get the idea from? What's the background? This sounds like it touches you personally. That type of thing. That's if the publisher is serious. Because if the publisher isn't serious, then even approaching with confidence and knowledge, he's going to just blow you off. But if the publisher is serious, every person, no matter who or what, should be able to sell themselves. If there's nothing else that you could sell, you should be able to sell yourself. You should know yourself, know your strengths, know your weaknesses, know your bad habits, which you already know your good habits. You should know yourself and be able to sell yourself, because you aren't actually selling the submission. This publisher has heard many of the same ideas and the same stories. But what he's looking at is investing in the person who is actually doing the submitting. Because one thing that you hear, and Paul will second this from consumers, is maybe they're like a dislike from a particular creator. And they'll say, I'm not going to buy his stuff because they don't like him. The stuff may be fire,
Facts.
but they don't like the creator. So they aren't going to buy the stuff. So, yeah. If the publisher is serious, then be able to talk about yourself, talk about your book, talk about your goals, talk about where you see yourself and your expectations from this publisher if he does say yes. Because a serious publisher is going to say, I like this guy. He knows what he wants. He knows where he's going. He knows about this. And they'll be able to make an informed decision, sometimes right there on the spot. Call me back. We'll talk further. Or I'm not taking anything right now. And in either circumstance, you are the same as you were when you approached. Either he's going to say yes or no. Either way, you are the same as you were when you approached. So
that's dope.
That is probably the best advice I can
give. Same question to you, Mr. Freestyle. Somebody coming up to you at a con, or they hitting you up online. They want to know, hey man, how can I be a part of Freestyle Comics? How do they approach? And what makes you say yes?
If someone is trying to bring a book or a story to FSK, I would say the only thing you really need to do, man, is just have a few images of your characters, a character sheet or two, couple pages of interiors, whether they're laid out pretty thoroughly or you got fully finished pages. Because if you have dope characters, unique and original characters, and good art on your and when I say good art, I mean storytelling. Like then my interest is gonna be piqued. I mean, there's been a few people that have come up to me with just the characters, and because of I look for characters that look unique. I look for characters that look like regular people. I mean body types, height, that you have a nice variety of male, female, they, them, that type of thing. I'm looking to make sure that you are being inclusive in your story, because our world is an inclusive world. And if I see that these characters are drawn well, that they look like they have life to them, my interest is automatically piqued. And I would say your pitch needs to be under a minute. I don't need to know the whole story because we haven't gotten familiar yet. This is the first date, and I'm still trying to see. I'm trying to see if I'm gonna pick you up tomorrow for the next one. You know what I'm saying? But be concise and have, hey man, be energetic, man. Please do not come with a humdum, low-driven attitude or atmosphere. Because when I'm at a show, I am high energy from the show, from the morning that we get in until we clock out. I'm on it, and I want you. If you're not excited about your idea, why should I be excited about your idea?
That's a fact.
You know what I'm saying? Like if you're not bringing that same enthusiasm and energy that I bring to a pitch or a sale when I'm talking to somebody, then don't come to my table. Like just watch my table and see how I act. Like if you're not coming with at least a third of that type of energy, don't come to the FSK table.
That's a fact. Hey, side question to you, Paul. What you're out there in the Black comic lore streets or in the con circuit, you see a dope individual self-publishing. He expresses to you that he needs some help. He's looking for a house. What does he have to have for you to want to introduce him to one of us?
What does the publisher have to have in order for us to want to introduce him to all of you? I would say primarily, you kind of have to have really good story, really good art, and a nice attitude. It's very simple.
Right.
You have to be willing to engage with your fans. You have to have good quality materials. You'd be surprised at the type of stuff that we get in our space submitted to be approved to go into the Black comic lord space that we have to reject all the time. It is amazing. I've had people literally submit stuff on a napkin.
Wow.
A napkin. Stick figures on a napkin.
Wow. Sheesh.
And say, here's my art I'd like to promote. I want to do a Kickstarter. Can you guys help me?
That is
So
interesting.
that I think is important.
Because for you to bring somebody to us, it already lets down some of our security measures. Because if you're bringing it to us, then we're trusting you. You see something that is up to standard that we would appreciate to even take time on to check out. So sometimes that is some of the best ways to get, like with me personally, some of the people that are on concrete, they were alerted to me by people that are already in concrete. Like, hey man, I need you to check that book out, man. Like I wouldn't have met Carla if Anaji didn't see the character on Instagram. And he said, yo, this character is dope, but she don't got a book. You should check her out and talk to her. Anaji set up the meeting and that was it. That's how that came about. And she's glorious right now. But because he already knows what I'm looking for, it made it much easier for my decision to be like, okay, she's cool. Let me check it out. So it's very interesting because submissions is one of the biggest questions I get. I get that one a lot. So this is my last question for you guys, and then we're gonna wrap this one up right here. And I'm gonna start with you, Lloyd. I'm excited to hear this one. What is the biggest advice you would give your younger self?
Oh man, easy. Just do it. Just do it. I procrastinate. Self-doubt was something that I dealt with heavy, and honestly, at points still deal with. But the biggest advice: to stop being scared and simply just do it. Go for it.
Just do it. Hey, short, sweet, simple, but very effective saying right there. Mr. Watson, what would you tell your younger self, man?
Oh my goodness gracious. Uh that's another big question, man, because what would I tell myself? Because some of the things that happen, good or bad, needed to happen for me to grow.
Yeah.
And it's like which one do you want to guide yourself away from, and which one do you want to guide yourself to? Um Probably the biggest thing that held me back was redrawing pages over and over and over again, trying to make the book perfect. And maybe having a conversation with myself much quicker than that and just put the content out. You're not going to get good. You're not going to know what it feels like to finish. You're not going to know how to do a comic book until you actually do a comic book. And as you do each book and each one comes out, you'll get faster. You'll learn to do things quicker. You'll learn shortcuts. But I, you know what? I take that back. Use Clip Studio. Use Clip Studio. There we go. Sorry. Use Clip Studio. Because if I would have been learning how to use Clip Studio from the beginning when it first got introduced, I would probably be miles, thousands of miles ahead of where I am artistically right now. I fought it off for so long, and I fought off digital art. I knew I was going to get somewhere. I had to walk it through. Use Clip Studio, young one. Get it now and embrace it.
Nah, that's dope. Master Jedi, Mace Windu, what advice would you give your younger self, Mr. Roberts?
You know what? I would drop myself a pound and say, brother, you all right.
That ain't bad.
Because
that ain't bad
I have accepted myself as I am now and have learned to work with what I am and can do it effectively. And if I change any small thing in coming up, like Mike said, good or bad, if I change any small thing, then I may not be who and what I am now. So I like me. So I'm going to drop him a pound and say, look, man, you all right. Make sure he doesn't change anything because I like me. I think me is pretty cool.
No, I think that's fire, man. Fellas, this has been an outstanding panel. Y'all know there's so much deeper we could go in this publishing conversation, but I think this is a very good intro to the minds of publishers, man, and what it's like on this side of the table when it comes to Comic Cons, when it comes to publishing, when it comes to networking in a community like Black Comic Lords, and how to make a name for yourself. And y'all are amongst the best that do it out here on the large scale of a creator that publishes multiple titles. And y'all are stepping into we're all stepping into uncharted waters. and we're navigating great. We all throw each other lifeboats when we need life vests when we need them. And I really appreciate you guys, man, showing up for KWAY weekend. And any last shout outs that you guys want to do, the floor is yours.
Our biggest one, of course, to my wife, Tashi J, the co-founder of Midnight Comics. She does a fantastic job, and of course, not only does she create stuff, she is now an award-winning editor. So she's doing a fantastic job there. So that's probably the biggest one I would definitely shout out.
Shout out to that, man. Some really good points leading into the weekend for a husband. You know what I'm saying? You got yourself up right there. Any shout outs, Mr. Watson?
I'd like to shout out the entirety of the FSK team. There's always somebody helping at Freestyle Comics, whether it is to volunteer their time, to ride to a show with me, to help me put things in organize or help me pack and ship. And a lot of people just do this stuff. They volunteer. I'm not able to pay everybody for everything that happens or goes down at Freestyle Comics. So a big shout out to the Freestyle Comics team. And I don't want to look like I'm riding a boat, but Carmen is a part of that team as well. And my kids. They get the shout out too as well, because my kids always come down to my studio to spend time with me while I'm working.
I appreciate the husbands trying to get up for the weekend, man. We trying to stay up above the water.
We try to win out here.
Oh, man, we got to win out here, man. So, major shout out to the wives. Okay. And lastly, you, Mr. Roberts.
Well, I'm not gonna break the chain. I got to shout out my wife because
there you go,
without her support, I would not be. Look, the wife, God, and the kids. All right, that's the order. Remember, the wife, God, and the kids. Yeah, on the real tip. Yeah, without her support, man, it would be difficult to do this because, as married men, we know. That's another whole different thing that we have to balance and juggle.
Whole another battle right there.
Everybody at Second Sight, I wanted, particularly my partner Bradley Golden, because it was actually Bradley who founded Second Sight, and I was talking to him back in the day, and he was like, "Man, I'm finna put you on," and he put me on, and we've been rolling ever since. So definitely shout out to him.
Well, I'm not gonna break the chain, fellas. Shout out to the wife, man. Wife and kids. You know what I mean? Wouldn't be here without you, babe. Amber designs all the logos you guys see. The concrete brand, that's all the wife's brainchild right there, man. So the color scheme, the black and white, she told me I couldn't have no colors, and that's what it stuck with, and it's been the model. So shout out to the wife. Major shout out to Ty Black and Culture that was orchestrating and running this whole shindig for KWAY weekend. Shout out to everybody on Concrete. Make sure y'all go and support the Patreon. Y'all want to see us make more books? Go support that Patreon. Have a happy KWAY weekend, and as always, keep it concrete. Y'all know the vibes.